Hello everyone and welcome to A Slice of My Life. This video is about my first proper custom mechanical keyboard build, and initially I had no plans to make this video, but the backstory is that about a couple of months ago I made a post on the mechanical keyboards subreddit called "Making Plastic Look Less Plastic and More Like Glass." And you guys know I like to do a lot of custom Rit dye jobs on my knife scales, especially if you follow me on IG. You'll see that I post quite a lot of my work there. Well, it's not a lot, but at least it's something that I really enjoy doing. And with everything that I do, or at least everything that I get interested in doing, a small part of it always revolves around experimentation, experimenting with different types of dyes, experimenting with different types of plastics, etc. And a happy accident resulted in tinting a piece of acrylic into a shade of blue that resembles glass. And when I first bought this keyboard kit, the same kit that I'm going to be talking about in this very video, the BM60EC, it actually came with this plastic case, and I'm not too happy about this particular case. It does feel flimsy and cheap, but basically what I want to say is that I have no idea what plastic this is made of. It's definitely not acrylic. They just listed as plastic. I suspect that this is made of polycarb, but after sharing some pictures of this on Reddit, some redditors mentioned that this is possibly made of ABS. However, I really doubt that this is ABS because of, well, certain properties that this plastic is made of. I really don't think it's ABS. It could be because it's really thick, but you know, I've handled ABS before. I don't think this is ABS. Anyway, I tried to replicate that happy accident on this very case, and I was quite successful. At least I like to think that I was quite successful, which led me to making that post on Reddit. So to end the backstory, the response on that post was pretty good, like surprisingly good. And a handful of Redditors mentioned that they hoped that I would make a video about this. So actually you guys are the catalyst to this very video. Shoutouts to all of you guys on the Mechanical Keyboards subreddit. And I really want to say this now, but because this happy accident was a success, that is precisely why I don't think this is ABS. And that is because I used to Rit dye a lot of my Nerf blasters in the past, and from experience, ABS absorbs a lot more dye than whatever this plastic is. Okay, to tell you guys about this keyboard, in my previous video about my journey into the mechanical keyboard world, that keyboard featured was the DNA65, and that is what is known as a pre-built keyboard. What that means is basically you purchase it online or off the shelf, it arrives to your doorstep, you open it up, plug it in, and basically it is good to go. You can use it immediately. That is a pre-built keyboard. To be more precise, it means that the switches, the stabs, and the keycaps were all pre-installed and ready to go. Since then, and I believe that I mentioned this point in that video, but yeah, since then I purchased a KBD67 Lite R1 kit, and that kit came semi-assembled with the case foam, the PCB, the plate foam, the plate, and the stabs all pre-installed. The only things that you needed to get the keyboard going were switches and keycaps, and that's it. So that's semi-assembled. Also, another point to add is that so far the keyboards mentioned, the DNA65 and the KBD67 Lite, they are both 65% keyboards. And by the way, this is my KBD67 Lite R1. This is actually my daily driver in the office right now, and it features a smoke grey case with the case foam installed, the PCB obviously, the plate foam installed as well. This has also got a polycarbonate plate, and the switches I'm using in this are the IDOBAO U4T switches, lubed and filmed. And the stabs are now Durock V2 stabs. No guys, I did not make a mistake this time. PCB mounted stabs. And it is topped off with the IDOBAO Blue Cat keycap set. This is an SA profile keycap set, and I've got a little, I guess you could call this an Artisan keycap. I don't know, just a cute little keycap that I got off drop. And as my daily driver, I must say I really enjoy this keyboard. My colleague Michelle, shoutouts to you Michelle, she mentioned to me that when I'm using this keyboard, it sounds like the light patter of rain, and I really absolutely love it. Seriously, the sound of it and the feel of that tactile bump from the IDOBAO U4Ts is just amazing to me, at least at this point of time. I mean, yes, I'm biased, but this is my preference. But just check it out. That spacebar sound, wow. Guys, I'm like my hair's standing right now. I'm getting goosebumps. I love it. Okay, I'll put it closer to the mic over here. And then this is the sound of the enter key. Backspace. And so in general, if I were to kind of give you a simulation, because you know, Michelle sits away from me, right? If I'm just typing like that, kind of, I'm pretty sure that you guys will also agree that this does sound like the light patter of rain. So if I love my KBD67 so much, then why am I actually making another keyboard? But that's because it seems like many people really love linear switches. I mean, most of the videos that I watch on YouTube, like people who build new keyboards and stuff like that, usually they lean towards, in my opinion at least, they lean towards linear switches. And for me, I've only experienced tactile switches. That's because the PSYK was like this, right? I'm just thinking, well, is it going to be like a smooth thing or do I want to feel the bump? Without actually understanding or actually experiencing a linear switch. And for me, I thought, hey, you know, I really enjoyed that bump. So I've always gone for tactile switches. No joke though, in so many videos, you will see people talking about Gateron yellows, NovelKey creams, Telio switches, and I'm like, is there something I'm missing here? I know it's all about preference, but really? Is there something I'm missing here? Also, ever since I came across the Satisfaction 75 keyboard, I wanted to try out a keyboard with a knob. And just to be clear, this was actually available before the GMMK Pro, because I'm pretty sure that some of you guys watching this video will mention the GMMK Pro. A handful of reviewers had already put out their videos about the GMMK Pro, but it was not yet available for purchase. Also, the BM60EC is a 60% keyboard, which is smaller than the 65% keyboards that I've told you about. And it features what I would call the most basic, and correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, I'm just calling it the most basic mounting style, and that is the tray mount style. So all in all, in my mind, there was so much room for experimentation, so much potential for modifications, and that is why I just went for it. So like I mentioned, the BM60EC came with this plastic case, and even though I made it look a little bit more like glass and less like plastic, this case is honestly still very meh. So, spurred on by the hopes and dreams of the redditors, I'm just kidding guys, but for real though, partly spurred on by the request there, I sought out another acrylic case. Hopefully this time a better one. And I eventually landed on the KBDfans 5-degree frosted acrylic case. Also, one of the pros of a 60% tray mounted PCB board is that there are many cases available in the market. And now let's move on to the dyeing process. The first order of things, you need to clean the object you want to dye or tint. Here I'm using a glass cleaner and an old toothbrush. You want to make sure that the piece is clean from stuff like oils, mold release residue, and even oils from your hand. Then I just dried it off with some kitchen towels. I like to say that the case looks mad dope when it's wet though. Next, I got myself a large disposable baking tray. For anything involving Rit dyeing or any forms of fabric dyes, I strongly suggest that you do not use any pots or pans or trays that you use to cook food in. And here I'm adding some salt, but I have to confess that I don't know if it helps since Rit Dye More is a liquid-based dye. I apologize for not mentioning this earlier, but for this particular dyeing job, I'm using Rit Dye More. Not the standard Rit dye, but Rit Dye More. That is a liquid-based dye. The practice of adding salt stemmed from using powder-based dyes, so yeah, I just stuck with it anyway. Okay, you need boiling water. Well, kind of boiling water or boiled water basically. For some materials, G10 for example, you want to dye them using a Rit dye solution that is at a rolling boil with a low heat flame. However, different plastics have different melting points. ABS and acrylic will definitely warp if you submerge them into a solution that is at a rolling boil. So what I'm doing here is to first add a bit of boiling water into the disposable tray, then pour in my Rit dye and create what I like to call an initial mix. I like to do it this way, but there is no actual fixed way to do this. But in my mind actually, I'm telling myself that by doing it this way, the dye solution won't turn too cold too quickly. It's dumb, I know. It's just a quirk of mine, I guess. The dye solution that I made in this case is a mix of two different colors from the Rit Dye More series. Tropical Teal and Kentucky Sky. The proportions that I'm going for are by pure estimation. For the amount of water that I'm using, I added half a bottle of Tropical Teal and about a third of the bottle of Kentucky Sky. I wanted the solution to be sort of a darker shade of teal. Then I top it up with more boiling water. An important thing to take note of is that you want enough solution in whatever container you're using to be able to completely submerge the object you are tinting. Then I waited for about 2 minutes just to make sure that the water isn't too hot anymore, and then slowly eased the case into the solution. Notice how I held the case with a kitchen towel so that I don't accidentally get any oils from my fingers onto the case. And the rest of the process is simple. Just check on it periodically. What you want to look out for are two things: whether the plastic warps and the shade of the color. As the solution cools down over time, the likelihood of it warping goes exponentially down and the color absorption goes down as well. If you have access to or are able to have a different setup where you can have the solution over a controllable source of heat, you can basically inspect the item, give it a quick wash under running water to better see the shade of the dye, then reheat the solution and repeat the process. So all in all, I left the acrylic case in the solution for a good 8 minutes. I know that acrylic is quite resistant to dyes, so I wasn't afraid about leaving it in the solution for that long of a period of time. A quick disclaimer here, I've got prior experience in Rit dyeing plastics. If you're intending to do it for the first time, make sure you wear gloves. Make sure you also watch and control the flame or heat. Rit dye solutions bubble up a lot and very quickly, and that may accidentally overflow. It's happened to me multiple times. And the last piece of advice is to take it slow and check on it periodically. If you're unsure, check on it every 10 seconds. If you want a darker shade of color, stick it back in and check on it again after another 10 seconds. You'll get the hang of it, and the process is actually very easy. And now everything's done, just wash the dye off. If you want to, you can scrub the case again with the glass cleaner and the toothbrush. Honestly, just rinsing it with water should be good enough. Next, I waited for it to dry off completely because there are threaded metal inserts in the screw stems and I don't want those to start rusting. The next step is to install the PCB to the case. I didn't want to bore you guys with the lubing stuff, so this is the PCB and an aluminum plate already assembled with KBDfans modular plate foam installed. Lubed the stabs up. These are cherry plate mounted stabs with one Durock V2 stab that was left over from my KBD67 Lite. And the switches here are what's called Crayon switches. These are Franken switches made out of NovelKey cream switch stems and Gateron brown switch housings. For the case foam this time around, I'm actually using some of these anti-slip foam that is made for furniture, and for me I like it a lot because it's really easy to get around all those protruding screw stems. I also decided I wanted to try the burger mount mod, so that explains the O-rings here. After the mounting is done, it is time to add the keycaps. The keycaps here are the NP-PBT Crayon keycap set that I bought from KBDfans. I usually don't like light colors for keycaps, especially not white, but the colors of the legends and all the modifiers and extra keys are just simply irresistible in this keycap set. For the encoder, the BM60EC came with two knobs, one in black and one in silver. They're actually nothing to shout about, but at least it's nice that they included two different colors. So here is the keyboard. Now the color of the case, right? Let's talk about the color of the case first. Right here are two of the blocker pieces that came with this particular case. And I'm going to compare them side by side, but I honestly don't know how well this will translate on screen. But yeah, here you go. If I put them like this, right, I really have to say that I'm quite happy this actually turned out the way it did. It really does, well, to me at least, look less like plastic and more like glass. Okay, in all honesty though, while I'm happy with the result, when I look at this keyboard, I look at it like that. The keyboard on its own. And when I look at it this way, and seriously, I think if anyone looks at it this way, I don't think anyone will notice that I actually did a Rit dye job to this particular acrylic case, right? It's only when I compare this to the original blocker pieces, I can't even say original blocker pieces because this was actually the original thing. What am I saying? When I compare it to the blocker pieces that were not Rit dyed, that's when I can really tell, yeah, it looks a lot less like plastic and much more like glass. Okay, all of that aside, basically what you need to build a keyboard are 6 main parts. First, you need your PCB, then you need your plate, you need your switches, you need your keycaps, you need your case, and then you need a means of connectivity, whether or not it is a Bluetooth connection or a cable connection. So you need all those 6 things to fully build a keyboard. Anything else, like for example, plate foam, case foam, those are all optional stuff that you don't actually need in order to fully build a keyboard. In the earlier part of the video, I mentioned that I wanted to experience what it's like to use a knob. Now the cool thing about this particular keyboard is that this is actually compatible with VIA. I'm actually honestly surprised. Okay, it's not directly or natively compatible with VIA software. When you plug it in, you still have to load up the JSON file every single time. But at least, hey, it is programmable to a certain extent. The key switches are all remappable, including the ability to map what you want to use this particular knob for. So as of now, I've customized this to be the volume control. You can lower the volume, turn up the volume, or mute on and off. The next thing that I want to talk about is kind of focused on the right half of the keyboard. So this here is a 60% keyboard. So yeah, there isn't an extra row here that would make it a 65% keyboard, but it still has the arrow keys, most 60% keyboards that I see don't actually have the arrow keys, and arrow keys are really important to me. But you'll notice because of that, it's really congested on the right half here. There are a lot of like stuff all jammed up here, and I'm saying this because I kind of want to just give a shout out again to this keycap set, because this keycap set came with so many extra keys. I don't even know if they're called novelty keys, just random keys with like legends like this or like this, for example. And on top of that, yeah, because the keycap profile is an NP keycap profile, I had no prior understanding of what NP keycap profiles are. I didn't even know that these profiles existed, but these look rather uniform, so that adds another layer to how easy it is to customize and shift whatever keycap you want around. So yeah, basically I customized this in such a way that the backspace key is up here. I've got a right shift here and the question mark is here like that, with the volume control up here using the knob. So yeah, I'm quite happy with this keycap set. I'm really glad that it works out very well for this particular PCB board. Okay, this keyboard isn't complete yet. There are still a bit of final touches that I need to do to this. And the first one is regarding this knob. This is an encoder knob from a company called Coolor caps. Coolor? Color caps? I know, yeah, just Coolor caps. I generally use Coolor caps or chroma caps on my DDJ400 and I absolutely love them. They are slightly squishy, made of rubber, and they come in multiple colors. And so this color, in my opinion, matches this keycap set perfectly. And for the next finishing touch, I will be using stuff like this. This Artisan keycap is made by my friend Jared, aka Hat, and well, this is from his Skull Gang series of Artisan keycaps, and this particular one is in the RX78 color scheme. That's a Gundam color scheme. I mean, you guys know I'm quite a fan of Gundam. I mean, okay, for the record, this was completely unplanned, okay, unplanned guys. But yeah, I was looking around for a Gundam themed keycap, but nothing really caught my eye. But then when I saw Jared's artisanal keycap, yo, this rocks, man. Dude, this is so sick. And yeah, basically I changed the switch out to a tactile switch because everything here is going to be linear, and then this tactile thing would kind of match the tactile feeling of the encoder. That's what I was kind of going for, right? Just tactile in the corners up here. It is unfortunate that keycap making has to take a back seat for Jared because of work commitments, but that is completely understandable. Still, I really wanted to give him a shout out for such an awesome keycap. Look at that, guys. Also, for a sound test, I guess I should say that this is the best that you guys are going to get because I'm not really confident about doing a proper sound test. So here we go. And that is it, everyone. Thank you so much for sticking all the way throughout and sharing in this slice of my life. I hope you learned a thing or two from this video. And if you liked the video, I hope that you will give me a thumbs up. For those of you who are new or are not subscribed to the channel, I hope that I earned your sub today. And if not, it's okay. I promise I will continue working on the content, and one day, hopefully, I will earn that sub. Another great way to support the channel is over on Patreon. I'll put a link up here to that. There are Patreon exclusive content as well as Patreon exclusive giveaways from time to time. So if you do become a patron of mine, thank you so much in advance. It really, really means a lot to me. And as I end off this video, I want to say that I don't think this is the final form of this keyboard yet. Right now, it is using an aluminum plate. I don't know if I'm going to like the aluminum plate. So I'm going to be looking at the possibility of other materials for the plate. For example, maybe carbon fiber or even polycarb. Like, I think I'm going to enjoy polycarb if I could find it, because polycarb gives it a slightly deeper, thockier sound, and that's the kind of sound that I like. Also, I might want to try an aluminum case. I don't know how that'll be. So yeah, basically those are kind of like the next steps in the evolution of this particular keyboard. But you know, I'm going to be using this as my daily driver for now so that I can really kind of compare and experience the difference between linear switches and tactile switches in order for me to understand my personal preferences better. Thank you once again, everyone. I will catch all of you in the next slice. Bye.